Amo, you're on mute. I'm not sure if you know.
Oh my goodness. Let me run it all the way back. Thank you, mommy.
Sorry, I put it in the chat, but I thought you could see it.
No, let me run it back then. I didn't know I was on mute. Thank you. Thank you, mommy. Okay, so I'll start over again. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Still We Rise, a conversation on mental wellness. My name is Amoy Morgan, founder of Black and McAllen, and alongside my husband and co-founder, Dwayne Morgan, we are so honored to host you all tonight. Just sharing a little bit about us. Black and McAllen was founded and created to build connection for the Black residents of the Rio Grande Valley. I just want to double check. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay. It was founded for the Black residents of the Rio Grande Valley. And really, what began as a simple Facebook group grew to over 600 members. We're currently at 675, right? We started hosting panels, events, and different service initiatives and partnering with community partners like Viva and the Workforce Solutions to create career opportunities here for the diverse population that's been moving here. So tonight's conversation really is a part of that mission. We're creating safe spaces where we can connect and reflect and heal and just continue to rise together. So I'm really grateful and thankful that you all are here. Thank you to our panelists for taking the time out, and to those on Facebook Live, thank you for listening in. So, as I mentioned, we were really created to build that connection and to continue to grow that connection. So, I'm not going to, delay. I'm not going to prolong anything else. Again, my name is Amoy Morgan, and my husband, also the co-founder, Dwayne Morgan. He'll be sharing a little bit later about our other upcoming events. Tonight's agenda is pretty straightforward. We have our introduction that I just gave, followed by Dr. Yemi Adebowale, Dr. Nefertari Harris, Jeremiah Omatosa, and Sawayla Ugwuegbu, as well as Jolanna Watson Brown. And then we're going to do some Q&A at the very end. In between each panelist segment, we'll take about 2 questions just to keep the flow of things going. And at the very end, if there's a ton of questions, whether on Facebook Live, Dwayne will read those out to us, or if there's no questions, we'll proceed to the next speaker. So without further ado, thank you all for coming, and I will turn the mic over to Dr. Yemi. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right. I think I am unmuted now. All right. So everyone, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity. So as you mentioned, I am Dr. Yemi Adebowale. I own Integrated Minds Wellness Center, and all of those titles that you see behind my name, I don't know if you can see it. So one is DNP, that's a Doctor of Nursing Practice, Advanced Practice Registered Nurse, and Psychiatric Mental Health NP, board certified. So in our clinic, we collaborate with psychiatrists, counselors, therapists, everyone that can be of help to anyone that has any mental health needs. So that is one area that you can always reach out to us. We will make sure we take care of everyone, especially if you mentioned that we met on this platform. So I mentioned to you all of those titles behind my name for one specific reason. Almost every single one of the titles and my degrees were obtained after I moved to the Rio Grande Valley. Prior to coming to the Valley, I was an LVN, licensed vocational nurse. Now, everything else you see after that is after the Valley. So that was about 18 years ago. That's 2007. Back then, there wasn't really any Black people. You can go a whole month walking the street without seeing or meeting anyone. So then I will talk to you today about my approach, what we did, since we live in the Valley and we're talking about the Valley, okay? So what we did in order to be integrated into the community and for the education and do what we needed to do was first, we had to pick up the language just a little bit to learn just a little on how to get by. Hi, how are you? And how did we do that? How did I do that? By making friends with the locals and just asking questions. Teach me how to say this. Teach me how to say that. So they were able to teach some basic understanding of, Spanish. How do you say this? How do you ask people questions? Because what I learned was when people hear you say anything in Spanish, they are more eager to help. They gravitate towards you. They ask you more questions. They want to be your friend. They want to answer your questions. So that is one. And also, I understood that I had to focus on the things that are important, which is things that I have to do, and the things that I need to do. The things that I wanted to do, that will come later. So things that we had to do was, I know I had to go to school, be educated. Church was very, very important. Work was very, very important. Now, out of those three areas, I'll say 90% of the people that I connected with came from those three. So at church, for example, I volunteer, I ask questions. I was able to meet a lot of Black people, especially through church. And many of them are still my friends today, almost every single one of those people. So don't be shy to speak with people, ask questions if you don't understand. Let me give you an example of asking a question that was very interesting to me. So when I first came here, I used to go to Houston, let's say, twice a week, because that's where we came from. And then when I need to get a haircut, I would travel back to Houston to get a haircut. But one day I was sitting in one of my classrooms. This was in 2007. And the girl sitting next to me, she's from here. I just asked her a random question. Do you know where Black people get a haircut? And she said, yes, I do. I thought she was joking. So she introduced me to Carrie. And I've been getting a haircut from Carrie for the last 17 years. So that's an example of there's no question that is stupid that you can't ask. Just ask the question. Now, another thing that people always talk about is there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. There are no people to meet. So what I did was all of the arenas that they have locally. Back then, it used to be State Farm Arena. It would be McAllen Convention Center. Now they have Bert Ogden Arena. So what I'll do, I'll just Google events going on at State Farm Arena. So many events. Things that you couldn't even imagine, some of the events that I've attended there. Even right now at Bert Ogden Arena, they have so many events. So when people say that to me, I always tell them, no, where are you looking? What are you trying to do? There's so many things that you can do. You just have to ask. You just have to Google it and things will pop up and you can enjoy it. I also tell people that things that you can control, it will bring about peace of mind to you. Control how well you do in school, if that's what you came here for. Control how well you work. And at work, build meaningful friendship, conversations. And if you need help, we're talking about mental health now. We have collaborations with psychiatrists, like I said, counselors and therapists. You can ask questions and we'll refer you to the right resources. There is nothing that you cannot do here in the Valley. I believe that here in the Valley, to me, I think success is inevitable. Absolutely. I also believe that that potential that almost everybody have is going to become a reality at some point. It's just a matter of effort and time. That's what people need to do. And I have seen that happen with many, many people around me. Okay. And that's it. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yemi. And I want to apologize. I did not read my bio, your bio, because my screen decided to freeze at the exact time. So I'm going to just take it back a little bit. Dr. Yemi is the owner of Integrated Minds Wellness Center, a psychiatric clinic located here in Edinburg, Texas. So if you are local to the RGV, Edinburg, McAllen, he is here as opposed to some of the other speakers you'll hear. However, I know some of them are also virtual counselors, so that's another thing, but he is physically here in the Valley, and he specializes in that evaluation and medication management, serving children and adolescents and adults in geriatric populations. So that was Dr. Yemi. Thank you for going. And our next person we have coming up. Well, before we do our next person, is there anyone online with any questions? Do you see any questions on the Facebook Live? And our panelists, feel free. You can also ask questions in an effort to engage as well. No questions yet.
I would like to ask a question. I would like to ask, in your professional practice, how has life been engaging your Black clients? Are there any specific challenges that you've ran into? And how do you tackle those kind of challenges head on?
So I haven't seen a lot of Black clients that are local. The ones that I've seen are usually virtually, which they'll be in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio. And the challenges that we face is very, very minimal, because what I've found out is when Black individuals meet another Black individuals, we just relate. They feel like I understand what they're going through, their experience. So they are able to tell me everything that they probably won't share with anybody else. There's so many others. At least I'll say the population of patients that I see in my practice are Black, probably 15%. But they're not local in the Valley. They're outside of the Valley. So they're not experiencing the same challenges that people have that are local, whether it's the language barrier, or they feel like, okay, if I go and see this individual, would they understand me? Would they really understand where I'm coming from? So for me, it hasn't really been any problem at all.
And I see another question came into the chat. Thank you, Dr. Yemi. How can folks get in contact with you directly? Are you able to put your information in the chat? How do locals connect and reach out to you directly?
So the primary source of connecting with me will be to call the clinic directly. Now, I have staff that are working with me in the clinic, very, very, I say they're very good, excellent staff. So the phone number, should I say it here?
Yeah, feel free. This is being recorded. They'll have it.
So the phone number is 956-329-7764. Or you can email us at integrated IMWC, which is Integrated Minds Wellness Center at integratedminds.com. But phone number is the easiest. Just make a phone call. Yeah, and especially if you mention to them that we met on this platform, then they will take it, more seriously. Like, okay, this must be people that Dr. Yemi knew personally. Okay. And just call there, whatever you need. If it's consultation, if you need to see me, if you're just looking for resources, we can always look for it and get it to you. Whether you're a patient or you're not, or you're seeing me or you're not seeing me, you just let us know what we need and we can help.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Yemi. So I took some notes, definitely building community. You've built community through church, friends.
Yes.
Ask questions, ask the locals questions, and pick up the language, learn a few conversational pieces. And then, looking for events. Where are you looking for events? A lot of the places that I like to look is Facebook events, but you did mention a good one, just typing in the arenas, the convention centers here. So all great advice. And then also, I love that you said things that we can control, be it our education and building meaningful friendships. I really do appreciate you sharing that, because those things are in our control, right? So as much as we may find, we may take the time out to find those things, what is in our control? If we can't control it, just let it go. But I loved all of what you had to share. Yeah, if there aren't any more questions, we're going to move on to Dr. Nefertaria Harris, LPCN. I am going to read your bio because it's not freezing here on me. Dr. Nefertari Harris, we are so honored to have you in this discussion. Dr. Harris is a clinician with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and served as an affiliate professor teaching graduate level counseling courses. She brings over a decade of experience working with trauma, depression, relational issues, veterans, and historically underserved populations. She is also the founder of Nourished Mind Counseling and Consulting, where she focuses on the intersection of emotional wellness, holistic healing, and the role of lifestyle and nutrition in mental health. Dr. Harris, we are so grateful to have your voice into this space, in this conversation. And I'd also like to add that she is my sorority sister. You have the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. And so I will be talking a little bit about just being Black in communities and what that might look like for us. So I currently live in Corpus Christi, Texas, which is, I guess, about 2 hours north, possibly, from McAllen. And so when we talk about being Black in these small communities, especially in communities that are predominantly Hispanic, like the Rio Grande Valley, I want you to think about this being a layered identity experience. Okay, so nationally, Black Americans are the minority. But when we look at kind of locally in the Valley, here in Corpus Christi, when we look at this, we see that the minority we're minorities within a minority dominant culture. Okay, so that creates a very unique dynamic. So, what that really means for us is learning how to navigate racial identity, cultural belongings, and representation in a space where our history and lived experience are not always widely reflected around us. Okay. So, and what this might look like in a day to day, it might look like us walking into a room and we're the only one, or maybe there's just a few of us. It might look like even in leadership roles, probably just only one of us, right? In these professional spaces, we might be the only one. So sometimes it's just only us in some of these rooms. And that visibility can feel very empowering, but it can also feel very heavy. Okay. So, because when we are one of the few, we are not just representing ourselves, we may often feel like we're representing the entire community. Okay. So, that type of pressure starts to affect our mental health. So now I'm going to move into just kind of like the weight of this visibility. Okay. Like this can be heavy at times. So being highly visible means being aware. Okay. So we, like Dr. Yemi was saying, being aware of how we speak, being aware of how we show up in these rooms, being aware of how our tone may be interpreted, um, aware of even stereotypes that may already exist. So just kind of having this knowledge and this awareness, and that can be just very emotionally laboring. It may require us to self-monitor, it may require us to adjust. It can be just all overall very taxing, right? And so we need to know when we need to just kind of go and protect our own peace. So as we're going through this, I want you to think about how this can affect us or anyone that we may know, right? Because this type of awareness and this type of heaviness can turn into what we might call chronic stress. And chronic stress may not just be emotional, but chronic stress can also affect things like our sleep, our blood pressure, our mood regulation, and if we feel safe in some of these spaces. So, kind of looking at culturally navigating through some of these majority Hispanic spaces, the Valley, right? The Valley is rich in culture. There is a deep pride there, and that is beautiful. But being Black in this region can feel culturally isolating at times. I think Dr. Yemi said that he went a month without seeing another Black person. Wow. So sometimes there is solidarity among communities of colors. Sometimes there is a misunderstanding. Sometimes there is invisibility, right? So we may find ourselves explaining things like our hair our language, our history. We may even experience assumptions about education, background, even socioeconomic status. And sometimes those experiences are maybe a little subtle. Sorry, but microaggressions are very loud at times. So there are questions that we might be asked, where are you really from? Right? So how do we deal with all that? How does that affect us? And so I love that we're talking about mental health in this space because within the Black community itself, there are additional layers. Historically, survival was prioritized over our emotional expressions, right? So we were always kind of taught to be strong, to keep going, to pray about it, to handle yourself. Don't air out our family business, right? We've probably heard some of those kind of comments in our family. But that mindset developed from protection and it helped us survive. But survival is not the same thing as healing. Okay. So when we think about the strength without processing our feelings, this may become suppression. And suppression shows up in various ways. We may see symptoms of anxiety, irritability, burnout, physical health issues, emotional numbness, and even a relationship strain. We may find that this might be affecting some of our relationships, right? Just all of this kind of stress. So, in communities where we are already feeling that silence, it will deepen, right? So if you um, are a Black professional in your field locally and you're experiencing some of this, even just showing this vulnerability can be kind of hard on you. And so we may find that, especially within our Black community, we hear these comments like, well, you're a strong Black woman or you're a strong Black man. We may hear these narratives. And there is a pride in resilience that is there with that. But resilience has been kind of romanticized, right? So being a strong Black woman is expected to carry everything alone, no need for help, to be independent at all costs, to stay composed no matter what. And maybe even being a strong Black man, that may teach our men, suppress emotions, handle everything by yourself, never show any fear. Okay. These identities have helped generations survive. But when vulnerability is silenced, healing can be delayed. So we have to redefine that strength when we're in some of, smaller communities like this. So strength is about setting boundaries. It's about resting. It's about going to therapy. It's about saying, I need support or saying that hurt. Okay. And that is not weakness. That is emotional maturity. So we may find this idea or this concept called code switching, right? And fatigue. And that's another layer is, into code switching is that, we're not just changing how we talk, but we're adjusting, right? We're adjusting to maybe our environment. We're adjusting to how much of ourselves are going to be revealed. It may be softening tones, so we're not labeled. It may be managing kind of facial expressions, maybe even reducing cultural references, right? We may find, when I hear people talk about code switching in my own practice, it can be kind of interesting, but we may find that this constant adjustment creates this psychological fatigue. And fatigue over time can impact our well-being. Okay. So when you combine things like our visibility, navigating through the culture, stigma in the community, and now code switching just to be in some of these rooms, we're almost creating this perfect storm for burnout, right? And if there's no outlet, that can be pretty rough. So let's think about, what do we do, right? What do we do when we notice all this? It may be asking yourself, what do I need? what type of representation do I need in leadership? What do I need to feel safe? So I love that you guys have this group. Um, but it may really be looking at cross-cultural conversations without defensiveness, right? We may need mental health. We may need normalization of that in our community. And we may need to really teach our children emotional literacy early, right? So in closing, I want to thank you guys for letting me speak about this. I'm super passionate about just, being Black in smaller minority communities. I have a pretty diverse background, traveling a lot. I want us to always think about, being Black either in McAllen, small communities. That means really carrying our history, our culture, being resilient, and showing up excellent in all these spaces. But I want you to remember resilience should not require exhaustion, right? Survival probably got us here, but healing will take us further. And so we need to have this healing, and that begins with honest conversations like the one that we're having now. Thank you.
Amazing. I have so much notes from that. I'm gonna let anyone else go first. We'll open up the floor to questions. We'll take 2 questions right now. And if anyone on the panel as well would like to ask a question. I will share some of the notes that I wrote. I especially like and love that last thing you said, resilience should not require exhaustion. I think I could relate to a lot of what you're saying, especially being sometimes the only Black woman, sometimes one of the only and the youngest Black women in a lot of the rooms that I enter in, and coming from Winter Park, Florida, where it was predominantly white or, not really diverse, and then moving to McAllen, Texas, it's kind of similar, but it's like in reverse, right? Because it's another minority, I'm amongst another minority group. So still, there's this book called the first and only, and it talks about being the first and the only Black women showing up in certain spaces. But just going back to a lot of what you said, suppressing certain emotions that could lead to numbness, and then obviously the actual science behind all, stress, how stress shows up in our life because of these different strengths and restraints that we are placing on ourselves. I think that's why spaces like Black and McAllen, spaces like Viva, or spaces like the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I'm thinking of another one. There's a Hispanic Women's Network. These spaces are really important because we can show up amongst people, like-minded people, and culturally, have these culturally relative conversations, experiences that we may all share. I remember one of my first times being here, I saw someone's hand coming straight to my hair, trying to touch my hair. I was like, whoa, no, it's okay. You don't have to touch my hair. And just understanding, like, when I had a baby, like, it's a common thing for people to want to touch your baby. Just different cultural norms here that we had to kind of adjust to and get used to, but also, not feeling the requirement to dim down who I am and dim down the person that I am to kind of assimilate, but rather still creating spaces for other Black people, young, old, whatever, to show up authentically as themselves. So thank you so much for sharing that and those thoughts with us. That was amazing. Are there any questions on Facebook Live? If there aren't any, we'll keep the show rolling. That's totally fine. We'll keep the show rolling and the conversation going. We can go to the next slide. If there aren't any more questions, I will go ahead and introduce our next speaker. We are also joined tonight by Jeremiah Omatosa. He is a community advocate and philanthropist. Jeremiah is deeply committed to creating safe spaces for dialogue and empowerment within the community through advocacy, storytelling, and leadership. He works to uplift voices and promote awareness around mental health and social impact. Jeremiah, thank you so much for lending your perspective tonight to this important conversation. He did forewarn me that he was gonna, bring the heat like he did last year, because we've had these conversations every year since 2023. So go ahead, Jeremiah, where the floor is yours. The mic is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me as always. Me and Amoy and Dwayne, we go way back, and I'm always excited to be here and to be able to speak with you all. Once again, my name is Jeremiah Mutasha. I am a community advocate, writer, poet, and philanthropist. I currently own a nonprofit. It is called Life Well Water Nigeria. I have built 13 wells in Nigeria and all along the West African coast. And we've done it by ourselves with no sponsorship. And so if anyone is looking to partner with us, please let me know, because that is something that is really dear to my heart. Now, as they say at a Black church, the spirit is one. The last speaker touched on a lot of topics that I will like to talk about today. And so the title of my message today is, How Did We Get Here? And for a lot of us who were in the 90s, I don't mean the Deborah Cox song, right? How did we get here? And as I was writing, I wanted to write about the community, how we got here, and what we can really do to change. And so I realized that there is this quiet exhaustion that lives in our community. And it's not the kind that you can sleep off. It's the kind that hits your bones like old winter, passed out down through generations like a story nobody ever got to finish. So when we talk about Black mental health, we're not talking about individual struggles. We're talking about storms that we've inherited. We're talking about waking up with ghosts in our bloodstream, memories that are etched into our nervous system, expected to function in a world that rarely acknowledges the weight we inherited. There are echoes in how we love, echoes in how we protect ourselves, echoes in how quickly we prepare for loss, even in moments of our joy. And so when we talk about trauma, trauma doesn't just live in our memories, it lives in our reflexes. It lives in the instinct to be twice as good, twice as careful, twice as strong, just to feel half as safe. And so when we talk about that same untold story, oftentimes we talk about the single mom that works 2 jobs, shout out to Reba. But no one talks about how she moves through the world like a bridge that refuses to collapse, a bridge that carries her children to the promised land she's never seen and may never even get to. I grew up with a mom who she woke up before sunset. She had time, I grew up with a mom who woke up before the sun even had time to negotiate with the night sky. Growing up, I had no choice but to believe in God, because I watched her pour her strength into teacups and perform my first miracle, where she stretched dollars like loaves and fishes, and still carried the invisible weight of being my shelter and my shield. And even while growing up in a multilingual house where I spoke English and Yoruba, she was still tired in ways even language couldn't hold. And so when I think about a Black man, I think about my father, how often he woke up with expectations that never let him forget that his value was conditional. And what people call strength was often just fear screaming through discipline, a performance that he perfected to hopefully one day gain applause that were loud enough to drown the cries of the boys that was trapped inside of him. When we think about little girls, I think about my sisters. I think about how often Black girls are called too loud, too much, too expressive, in spaces that were never designed to celebrate their voices. They learned early that joy had to be moderated, that passion had to be softened, that brilliance must often shrink to fit into rooms that were built without her in mind. And I think about myself as a little Black boy. I think about the fact that before I was learning algebra, I learned caution. Before I learned how to spell my full name, I learned how others saw me. I noticed how adults tensed up in my presence, how teachers watched me closely, how strangers misread my curiosity as defiance. And so imagine growing up in a world where your innocence feels conditional, where you have to prove that you are safe in order to simply be. And so the question is, how did we get here? We got here through histories of displacement, through systems that fractured families, through generations that forced us to prioritize survival over emotional expression. We got here through stories that demanded toughness as a prerequisite to our dignity, through narratives that applauded how much we could carry while ignoring what it was costing us. So mental health in our community is not just about therapy rooms, it's about acknowledging the environments that shaped our coping. It's about understanding what looks like anger is often just grief. What looks like withdrawal is often protection. And what looks like toughness from us is often unspoken hurt. And yet, despite all of these things that we've been through, we still can find things like this in McAllen, which is community. So from front porch conversations on, Sunday dinners, from barbershop debates, from church choirs, we've always created our own spaces, even when we didn't call it healing. Love has always been our quiet resistance. So the answer is not to abandon our strength. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be strong, but that we should expand it, to redefine strength as courage to speak about our struggles. Healing begins when we remember that we don't have to carry everything individually. It begins when we listen without rushing to fix it. So the truth is that we are just descendants of survival. We are descendants of connection as well. We come from people who heal each other together when everything was falling apart. We come from songs that we hummed under pressure, from our laughter that refused to die even when times were tight. Our future depends on reclaiming that spirit. And so if we want healthier minds, if we want to cultivate healthier communities, if we want the healing that we truly want, we gotta, practice compassion. And we have to do it intentionally. If we want our children to thrive, we have to show them that their feelings matter just as much as their achievements. That is a work that we have to do as a collective. And the path forward is rooted in something quite simple but profound: community and love. Thank you for having me.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Jerry. I'm always like so blown away by you because not only were y'all in the spirit, you and Nefertaria, but you literally just hit the nail on the head. I wrote down some notes, about trauma that you mentioned, value, being conditional, and just love being our quiet resistance, and of course expanding on our strength, because it's not a weakness, right? Our strength and being strong isn't our weakness. It is the epitome of how we've continued to grow. So expanding it, I absolutely love that. We're going to open the floor to questions. Yes, community and love, building community and just continuing to grow in love. Someone said snaps in agreement. Yes, 2 snaps in agreement. I did see it wasn't a question. It looked more like a statement. How in corporate America you can be painted as an angry Black woman for standing up for yourself. And I can resonate with that deeply, wholeheartedly. Because even when we are not in the wrong or we're just vocalizing and advocating for ourselves, it could just be painted so horribly wrong. I'll open up the floor to any questions on Facebook Live or any questions within the Zoom. And thank you for everyone that's on our Zoom right now. I see we have about 30 attendees, which is really great turnout, and a few more on Facebook Live. I'll open up the floor. Yes, and also this is very conversational. The last few times we've done it, people came off mute, came on camera, whatever you're comfortable with. If no one has questions right now, we'll return to a Q&A at the end. I'll just move on to our next speaker. Okay, so next is my pleasure to introduce to us Sawayla Ugwuegbu. She is the owner and chief wellness officer of Saloso Family Wellness, LLC. Sawayla is a public health practitioner and holistic wellness advocate. She holds a degree in dietetics and nutrition and a master's in public health. Her work centers on health promotion, disease prevention, and empowering individuals and families toward lifelong wellness. She is a certified health education specialist, certified wellness practitioner, and diabetes prevention lifestyle coach. Through Saloso Family Wellness, she focuses on whole person healing, mind, body, and spirit, and partners with organizations to expand access to mental health awareness and wellness resources. So, we're so excited to learn from you tonight. I will give you the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Moy. And really, it's just such a privilege to be here amongst this wonderful panel. My eyes and ears have been opened really with everything that's been shared this evening. So I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit more about mental health, self-care, and whole person wellness. As Moy mentioned, my name is Sawayla Ugwuegbu, and I'm so excited to get started and share with you all. So for this evening's agenda, just wanted to share a little bit more about what we do with Saloso Family Wellness. And of course, with our topic for mental health, just wanted to define wellness in that aspect and what that means, particularly in regards to self-care. And then wanted to share just a few practical application and approaches of what does it mean to care for the whole person, mind, body, and soul, as that pertains to your mental health. So who we are and what we do, here at Saloso Family Wellness, we are in the greater Houston area, North Houston area, and we partner with those around us to provide the healing mind, body, and spirit. Wellness through collaboration is essential for us, focusing on nutrition. That means partnering with schools, local nonprofits, and churches to provide nutrition health education. Also with creating workshops and programming, really so that we can have a personalized, individualized approach to health and wellness because it looks different for everyone. And then providing that access. You know, some may not have access to certain physicians to have that, but we can partner with others who are licensed so they can receive those services at a lesser cost. So our goal is to connect everyone to health and wellness within the community. Next slide. All right, so defining wellness and mental health, I have a deep compassion for a whole person approach. I always like to begin with defining wellness. It's a conscious, self-directed, evolving process whereby individuals, that's me, that's you, everyone listening here, we're able to make choices towards a successful existence. And that's something that should be owed to all of us, right? We want to have a successful existence. It's more than just surviving here on earth, but we want to thrive. And that means looking at who we are as a whole person, not just the mental health part of it, but as I always say, the part can never be well without the whole. What does that look like for you emotionally, physically, occupationally, not just your job, but who you are as a person, as a mother, as a wife, as a husband, intellectual, and then those social and spiritual connections. When we talk about mental health, it's spiritual, it's intellectual, it's how well you're socializing with others, it's how you're able to cope, and then it's physical as well. So essential for your overall health and the quality of life. It's more than just the absence of illness that we know, but it's being able to say that I feel healthy, and when I don't, I know where to go for access to care. Next slide. It's kind of looked off with my slide, but this was a presentation. Just want to share this poem that many of us are familiar with. There wasn't a woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and whipped them all soundly and put them to bed. Now, this is a very interesting poem. Many of us are familiar with it. But when you look deeply, this was a single mother and she was suffering from a mental health crisis, right? I've seen cartoons about it. We've laughed about it. But when we think about that woman, how could she have been supported better? Her only way of coping with that from the story is what we see what she did with her children. And maybe she didn't even have enough food to be able to give them a solid, sound sleep. So it's a lot of these stories that we hear over the years of, it was mentioned so many times, of that strong woman or that person who's coping so well with all of their many children. I think they're doing fine, but they're struggling with mental health. And it's hard to be able to look to someone to have that solution. And that begins with self-care. It involves doing things that help you live well and keep up your mental health. It's not about fixing yourself. So many times we want to fix about what's wrong with us, or I didn't do this well. It's because of my family history. It's because of this, what I was experiencing. But there's nothing wrong. It's all about the support that you need. There are so many people who may have had support going through these struggles, but if you don't have it, then you feel like you're the issue, that you're not the issue. And it's all about that recovery and stress. Each and every day we experience stress. It's something that we can't avoid. It's a psychological experience, as it was mentioned earlier. So just some components here for recovery. It's good nutrition, sleep, having those social connections, just like what's happening with Black and McAllen, right? Positive emotions, mindfulness, all of that is refilling your cup because work stress, relationship, caregiving, right? Having those boundaries, looking how to establish yourself right in that public spectrum, working in corporate, all of that can lead to illness and injury for stress. So we realize that I'm not fixing myself, I'm not changing, I'm supporting and refilling my cup. What can I do every day? Because the stress is coming. There are some things that I can't avoid, but I can take control of how I take care of myself. Next slide. Okay, I like to use this model. This is just the mental health continuum model, and it shows us what does it look like for coping through mental health issues. There's the side of healthy, where we classify I'm healthy, I'm calm, I know how to perform well. And then how do we get from healthy to ill, angry outbursts, constant fatigue, and physical illnesses, and going in between. Many of those who are licensed professionals, you'll see people on a day-to-day basis who are in that mode of healthy to reacting to ill. And I think that's really that whole person approach comes in, that when you realize you're at that phase where, you know, I'm getting a little nervous, I'm getting a little irritable, I'm forgetful. And instead of that being, this is the norm with raising children, this is the norm when you work 9 to 5, realizing that maybe it's not so normal and maybe I shouldn't just try to cope with it and stay strong. How can I get back to the healthy side and know that what I'm doing is taking care of myself and preventing me from going into that state where I feel like I can't fall asleep, I am having constant fatigue, and then there may be some sign of mental illness. Next slide. Okay, and just wrapping it up, here is my whole person approach to mental health. I think it involves 4 components, and this is what research and evidence base has told us as well. As I talked about earlier, it's focusing on all of you, because focusing on all of you, then you can fine tune those areas where you need a little bit more support for yourself. Moving your body. Just 15 minutes of running, that helps improve your brain blood flow to bring that connection and clarity that you need throughout the day to make those decisions, and it boosts the dopamine. The same effect that you can get from drugs or alcohol, you can get that same feel-good effect by just moving a little bit more. Sleep is also very important. Being out in the sun helps to reset your circadian rhythm. I always think about melatonin at night that we produce. In order to have a healthy balance of melatonin, you have to have serotonin, which is, we'll talk about, produced in the gut, but it's also with sunlight. Just a few minutes of the day. And of course, understanding our skin tone, getting that healthy sunlight in. It's so important for you to make serotonin, to be in a good mood, to be able to sleep at night so that you can make better decisions the next day. Then we have nourishing, all about nutrition. We are what we eat. 95% of your serotonin is made in your gut. Surprise, surprise, right? Having a healthy gut balance helps with your mood throughout the day, as well as eating those nourishing foods. And it's not about foods that you can't eat. It's about incorporating foods that help you feel a little bit better, right? Having a little kimchi or trying a kombucha tea, something that's probiotic, just to help throughout your day when you're experiencing those stress, because you know that if you have a healthy gut, that helps with connecting your brain and mood food. And then finally, and that's been a theme of this evening, is reframing your self-talk, practicing self-compassion. It's so easy for us to have compassion. Culturally, it's easy to have compassion and taking care of others. But what does that look like for ourselves? Having self-compassion for self. How would an aunt talk to you? How would your best friend talk to yourself? That's how you would talk to yourself at the end of the day. It's a study that says that over 90% of the thoughts that we think are thoughts from yesterday. Can you imagine waking up in the morning and instead of diving into Insta or Facebook, we reframe those thoughts into something positive? Because what we experienced the day before, we want to start afresh, and that begins with thinking new thoughts and firing and wiring your brain so that you can see clearer throughout the next of the day. So self-compassion, getting good sleep, moving your body, and nourishing yourself are all great ways for you to take advantage of that self-care for your mental health. And then lastly, yeah, there's opportunities to stay connected. These are some of the partners that I work with here in the greater Houston. One of my community partners, Peyton Wells, he's a mental health therapist. He's online too, and we connect and work together to provide this in our community. But this is how you can stay connected. If you're ever interested in having more health and wellness for what you're doing or have questions, we'll be happy to support you as well. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so yes, snaps. Thank you, Sawayla. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing your presentation with us and providing us with that information. I did see a question come into the chat, so it looks like a two-part question, so I'm going to read that here. It says, how can we best support our young people as they navigate friendships and try to build relationships in this area? That's the first part. And then the second part says, dating has been a challenge for my 19-year-old due to cultural differences. How do we help our youth navigate these areas? So kind of a two-part.
Yeah, those are great questions. I think from what you shared with young people too, really how they learn to form relationships is what they see going on inside of our homes. So creating and being that standard for healthy relationships will really help them once they go out, because there's a lot of ideas of what it should look like from Instagram, from social media, which we know it may really isn't true. But I think culturally too, just like it's been shared here on this panel, there's so many resources, kind of, exactly what Black and McAllen is doing, having that social support network where there's other young people involved that can show them the way, but definitely showcasing what you do within the home will better help them with the relationships.
I love that. Thank you for that response. I saw your hands raised. Jodi, did you have something to add to that?
Yes, hi there, wonderful folks in Sawayla. I am familiar with Sawayla and Peyton. I love that they also provide space for the creative. As Jeremiah also shared about poetry, I know Peyton has made that platform available too for expressing mental health. But Peyton, could you share a little bit about the drama therapy as well? I think that's not as familiar for some of us.
Sure, gladly. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay, well, my computer's been kind of frozen. Like I can't turn off my audio for some reason, and I feel horrible. So hopefully that hasn't affected anybody, because normally I would turn it off. Anyway, I wanted to make sure you could see me as well. So yes, I have my master's in drama therapy. I'm a registered drama therapist. A lot of people have never heard of it. I've heard of art therapy, music therapy, dance movement therapy. There's drama therapy. NYU, obviously, they have a huge program in New York, a lot in California, even in Canada. But I got my master's at KSU in Manhattan, Kansas. Long story short, I'm a cancer thriver. Have had lots of surgeries, have experienced a lot of challenges, and I have wanted to take my undergrad degree in theater and film and figure out how can I use some of that training in a therapeutic way based on my experiences in life. And I take with drama therapy, it takes a lot of verbal communication and makes it visual. So I think verbal communication is very important. I see my therapist on a weekly basis, so I'm all about that. But the visual and emotional side is a whole nother aspect of talking about how I'm feeling, and then showing and using my body and sculpting. That's one technique that we call. So as a drama therapist, brief, just a brief example, I could ask someone about a relationship that they're in, and they could be angry at a specific person. You can obviously do role play, and then Gestalt has an empty chair, where you can swap back and forth roles, and then but also sculpting is what I like to use, where I can say, okay, I'm the clay. Potter and clay is another good example. I want you to use my body and sculpt me that shows these emotions. And then I'm frozen. I mean, I'm not going to do it now, but you can do it in a lot of ways. And it's letting people express and see visually what they're thinking. So, yeah, I mean, I've worked in behavioral health. I'm from Arkansas, so I worked at the inpatient. You can imagine even the fun with adolescents, doing the talk all day throughout the day. But then I'm saying, okay, let's play. What is it that you want to do? Show me other outlets. And it's just
Awesome.
a fun, creative world. I love it. I love it.
That's awesome.
But this has been amazing to hear everybody's story. So
I
thank you.
love that. I love how we can use the arts to really connect with the youth and find an outlet for them to express themselves. So I think that's how it ties back to that first question. I will open the floor up to any of the other speakers. And I did see another question come in that is more specific to Dr. Sawayla. I see Christina asks, what tips do you have for transitioning to eating habits that reprogram our bodies for better health in a sustainable manner so that it's a lifestyle change that I can refine versus the usual on again, off again diet? Ms. Sawayla, do you have a suggestion for this person?
Yes, yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Jordan. Great question. And oftentimes when we hear that, we think that we have to completely stop what we're doing and add new things in. But for a healthy transition, I would say the crowd out approach. So if there's more healthy foods that you want to include, let's just say you want to start eating more vegetables, then you start adding that in. Try your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. The more that you add in those healthier foods, it'll change your palate. The less you will want to eat of the other foods because there's not as much of them on your plate. So if you're trying to incorporate more healthy foods, try adding a little bit in at one of your favorite meals of the day. Do it slowly and then work towards another meal until you have that plate that you really wanted to have.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And I know we're running a little bit over time, so we're going to go ahead and move on. We have one last speaker of the night, and I hope everyone can stay tuned for Jolanna. We can move to the next slide. Finally, we welcome Jolanna Jodi Watson-Brown. Jodi is a clinical social worker, Army veteran, grief certified professional, and certified telemental health provider. Her work focuses on mental health within the Black community, utilizing a biopsychosocial spiritual model that acknowledges culture, faith, systemic barriers, and lived experience. She brings both clinical expertise and cultural insight into how mental health impacts our families, workplaces, and communities. Jodi has also been my therapist for the last 2 years, and I'm grateful to have met her and have her in my life. We are honored to have her join us tonight. Jodi, please take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much, Amoy, and everybody, these great panelists. You guys have done so much to empower and inspire everyone. So yes, I hope you guys are able to, okay, you have the screen. Is that right, Amoy? Okay, great. So yes, starting with the agenda, but first, of course, introducing myself. Moy did such a great job. I just wanted to share that I also have my expertise and specialty in oncology social work, but also as a certified case manager and psychotherapist. All of these words to say that in most settings, I cater to person's overall well-being, which is to address the medical as well as the mental health needs, which leads into my next slide. But first, a quick overview of this agenda. We are going to discuss the biopsychosocial spiritual model that I practice, cultural impact, community impact, benefits of treatment, coping mechanism, and resources. Thank you. For the next slide. So the biopsychosocial spiritual model, basically mind, body, and soul and how it all connects. We are familiar, I'm sure, with that term, but just to break it down a little more for us, the bio is basically ruling out those medical things that could be going on with you. So, our stomach may hurt and all these different things, but if you're going to the doctor and you're seeing nothing else, then you may be suggested to also address your psychological well-being. And that can be from self-esteem, regarding resilience, awareness, mindfulness, your mood, self-compassion, gratitude, and those things alike. And then social, what consists of our connectedness, our community. I love that you guys even have this connection that you've created, but also I love support groups and those different ways to connect, relationships, love. So it's addressing those things. And then your spiritual well-being, which would consist of your faith, your beliefs, your prayer system, wisdom, purpose, practices, life, and satisfaction. So on to the next. So biopsychosocial spiritual model, some examples, different settings that we actually practice this could be if you go to a hospital that offers spiritual care services. So you may have a chaplain come visit with you and pray with you while you're trying to get well in the hospital. Hospice care is actually based on this model. So with hospice care, at the end of life, they want to make sure that you're getting some medical care to make sure you're not having any significant pain. You're also getting, just your daily activity type of care that you need, but you'll also have a spiritual care person assigned to you if you're open to that, social worker, and those different aspects. So that's what the hospice care model is based on. Support groups and organizations where you meet and then you end in prayer. You may not realize you're embodying all of those things. Yoga, exercise, meditation classes that acknowledge spiritual wellness, churches that provide education and health. Sometimes they have seminars and different things to give you some information. Listening to a sermon or lecture or podcast while you're exercising, or gathering with others for a good meal at home or the workplace with a prayer before the meal. So those different settings, you may not realize you're combining all those components. On to the next. So culture impacts. So of course there's positive impacts that we've been seeing, self-depiction, representation and changes, such as, just even in Disney, we're seeing the Black Mermaid and we're seeing the Princess and the Frog and different images that kind of help for us to see ourselves. Even in dolls like Barbie dolls now, you can find all different shades and those different things. Increased discussions, even discussions like now, and I'm seeing that more, and it's a great thing that we're increasing these conversations. Positive family connections, having a supportive family can bring a lot of people a long way. So if we're having that type of connection, I believe we are blessed if you can find that. And then our church families are a great positive part of our culture and impact. And then healthy trends and social relationships that are healthy. If you got those good friends you surround your people with, that are going to impact your mental health in a good way, in a positive way, but in that same aspect, we can find that negatively too, if we don't have those type of things. I mean, over here, I just want to point out, of course, you see Wakanda, they gave us some empowering spiritual and like good for the spirit type of images. And then we're seeing, this is actually women in Houston that's involved in the criminal justice system that have been elected. We have our first Supreme Court justice there as well. But negatively, something that's been a big part of our culture, a lot of people have heard what happens in this house stays in this house. And so that's just to say that we unfortunately have suffered in silence and not been given a voice a lot of times growing up, in our culture. And then, of course, fear or distrust in the system. A lot of us may be aware of like the syphilis study that was over 40 years. That, of course, just contributes to distrust in the healthcare system. And, of course, the numbers that we deal with in needing police reform can cause distrust in systems as well. So systemic issues that we've dealt with, but also affordability costs for a lot of folks. Maybe insurance costs too much, the location, transportation issues, and unfortunately, then with poverty, a lot of people are getting their care just going to the ER versus regular checkups and things like that. Another negative impact is family disconnection. So when you don't have, that strong family foundation, that of course can be a negative impact in a lot of ways. If we're seeing in the Black community, a lot of single parents, that's something that we've seen as well, statistically wise, that is something that would strengthen us if we can change that number and reduce that number. But higher rates of misdiagnosis. So actually in the Black community, there's actually higher rates of misdiagnosis of schizophrenia, even in youth with ADHD. So those different things that we need to combat. I'll go to the next slide. Community impact. So religious beliefs, which is great and wonderful, it's a wonderful thing to help, as even in history, we've gotten through a lot of things, with that strong belief that we've had. But also an adverse way to look at it is sometimes religious beliefs that's also kind of dismissed when we have needed some professional help. You may have seen Uncle John with the same issue or trait and it's just gone unaddressed. We're just going to pray about it type of thing. And I know that was mentioned earlier. But then also to look at music messages where sometimes there's been, music that provides, negative messages to our youth. And unfortunately, in this generation now, you can access music that used to be really hard to get to back in the day. If you wanted to listen to something bad, it was like after midnight, you're catching it on this particular show. But now, unfortunately, we're just have access to everything, and this includes our youth. So that's something that's definitely not a positive thing for us. And then overrepresentation in the criminal justice system. I believe the number is that Blacks are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated, even though the Black community consists of 13% of the population. So just statistically wise, it shows that, our families often are broken up because of this type of profiling and different things that we're dealing with in the community. And so that's something that causes a negative impact in our community. And as discussed before about family dynamics, 2-person homes versus a 1-person household, and just how there's more risk in certain situations to have a negative outcome. And then civil rights, voter suppression, that's a real thing. Political climate right now is a difficult thing. Also, of course, hate crimes have actually gone up in the last few years. So there's just a lot of that dealing with as far as suppression and stereotypes. But research as well, people are not doing the research, including, as inclusive in a lot of research on, and that could be medical and all types of things. But yeah, going to the next slide. Workplace stressors, we did talk about some. Hiring and recruitment biases in some workplaces, career advancement and leadership barriers, trying to get to the next level, like why did I get overlooked for this? Unfortunately, it is very high that discrimination and retaliation lawsuits and actions have been filed, in those kind of issues, pay disparities for some, economic inequity, underrepresentation in leadership and executive roles. And then this image here, is that a professional hairstyle? Who's actually in charge here? It's just questionable and may experience imposter syndrome and those different things, and that pressure, as discussed earlier, that one can carry. Go to the next slide. So benefits of treatment. Mental health treatment offers profound benefits, including improve emotional regulation, reduce stress, and enhance healthier relationships. It can provide tailored coping strategies for challenges like anxiety, depression, and trauma, boosting self-esteem, productivity, and overall quality of life. Early treatment can also prevent symptoms from escalating, promoting long-term well-being, and in many cases, better physical health. Help to cope with grief and loss as you go through that journey to get to that new normal. Some help to adapt to that, but healing from the trauma, all of those different things. So benefits of treatment. On the next slide. So some other options to think about when you are seeking that treatment, of course, counseling and therapy services, professional guidance to individuals dealing with stress, anxiety, depression, supporting mental well-being. Health assessment and physical and mental health are closely linked. So to an increased risk for chronic conditions, so that mental health stress, yes, does link to the chronic conditions like heart disease, diabetes, and stroke. Follow up with appointments to rule out these conditions are necessary. So listen to your body. Psychotropic medications. Medications prescribed to affect the central nervous system to treat psychiatric disorders or illnesses, best combined with talk therapy. So you like to have both of those just to decrease the long-term medication dependency. And then, of course, there's help crisis lines and online platforms. Community and peer support is important, like communities like this, different support groups. You know, you never know what you can find out there. Individuals providing affordable access and educational materials for managing mental health. And we'll go to the next slide. So here's some healthy coping mechanism ideas to add to your routine. Volunteering, you know, getting involved in purposeful work, mindfulness, relaxation, physical activity, journaling, and it says screaming a pillow. So there's a rage room, all kinds of things for outlets nowadays, but you want to do that, the healthy coping mechanisms. And of course, seeking professional help and allowing yourself to release. And going to the next slide. So some unhealthy coping mechanisms are compulsive emotional eating, shopping addiction, social isolation, self-harm, unhealthy substances, unhealthy relationships, sexual or not, avoidance and excessive escapism. These are just some Black mental health resources available. I can actually put those in the chat for us, and there's more at this link down below. Okay, and then moving on to the next one. Also some apps that are helpful, Headspace, Calm. You know, I don't know if you guys have seen the YouTube videos for like sleep. They have sleep music, guided imagery, you know, all things on there, you know, free. Down Dog, iPhone has a journal app that is really cool. Like you can put pictures and all kinds of stuff in there. Podcasts for mental health is good. Some empowering talk and affirmations there. And then some different platforms. So I'll make sure I can put that in the chat as well if you like to try to save it or so. But and myself there, Empowering You, PLLC.com. You can see on there that I provide, of course, psychotherapy, but also social work consultants for planning with medical conditions and things like that, case management services as well. So. And go to the next slide. That's just the references. And then the last slide. Thank you. And my name is here, my phone number and my email and website if you're able to come check me out on there. It's been a pleasure. You guys are wonderful. The panelists, Amoy made this possible. You're so amazing. Thank all of you guys.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Jodi. I'm linking from your slides. I'm linking the resources that you have listed. So if you guys want to check the chat box, all of those are listed from Jodi's slide. And then I'll also have this replay available on blackandmcallen.org so you can rewatch it as well as take notes again from Dr. Sawayla's as well as Jodi's slides, and I'm going to post it on our website. And I'll open the floor up to questions. I know we're a little bit over time. We're at 7:15. If you do need to go, totally understand. But we're going to still be chatting with our speakers, our panelists. If you guys have questions, Let me see what's in the chat. I see one question that said, how important is it to have a positive social circle? So I guess you can take that one, Jodi. And then all the other panelists also feel free if you have something, a thought, an opinion to share, please chime in. Jodi, you're on mute.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that is something that we, you know, with discernment and time and wisdom, we do learn what is the healthiest circle for me, who is actually for me and my well-being, and who is actually not giving me the best in what I need and support. You know, so that will take time, but I think it is very important because unfortunately we can project onto each other. Some persons who maybe, you know, they're always negative or upset or angry, and you actually can start projecting and carrying some of those feelings, or even the weight that you have to always be their support. You know, so it's going to be a balance. It's going to take time, but setting boundaries is really important. Setting boundaries, even with family, you know, family that can bring you down mentally. You do have to learn to set boundaries and realize who is the most important as far as your overall well-being, because you are the center of that. And if you want to be the best mother, the best sister, the best friend, you do have to learn to have those boundaries and set yourself with the support system you need.
Awesome. That's a great response. Definitely think boundaries is a good one. I also have another book that I've read. It is called Boundaries. If you want some book suggestions, I've read a few books that are really good that helps with that. Shanika, I believe that was the question, but Shanika, did you have another question?
That was my question. She answered it.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And anyone else? If there's any more questions, just go ahead. You can come off mute or you can type it in the chat box. I don't see any questions on the Facebook Live.
Are you going to do this like once a month or something?
So we have done this historically in Black History Month, for the last 2-3 years. We didn't do it last year because I was pregnant, and I was first time mom trying to get a grip on life. So we didn't do it last Black History Month, but we did it the year before that and the year before that. And then Mental Health Awareness Month, we've also done it historically. Mental Health Awareness Month, I believe, is in May. We've done it then as well. So it's not a monthly thing, right? But we do believe that this conversation is super important within our community. And then our committee that put together this whole thing, I cannot take all the credit because some of the topic suggestions did come from our committee. You can actually go to the next slide. They suggested having Dr. Yemi, a local, to talk to us here that are local to the RGV and are struggling with maybe loneliness, or, you know, maybe need different mechanisms, coping mechanisms to get out there to find community. So I think that this is an important ongoing conversation. And each of our panelists have touched on the fact that, you know, you can find community by doing research and by finding different events, like-minded people. Again, the way this group came about was I'm a New Yorker, so I'm used to going on Facebook and typing in people who love to, I don't know, crochet, and you can find your group, you can find your people, you can find your community that way. And, you know, Black people who like board games. I love board games. I didn't find a group at the time that was like Black and McAllen, you know, where's all the Black people gathering? And that's why this group was particularly created. But we're not just exclusive to Black people, right? Because we do recognize some of our members on the platform, they have mixed race children, Mexican mom or Mexican dad, Black mom, Black dad. And this is where community is important, right? Maybe their kids have never seen another Black kid or a kid that's mixed race like them. So this is where we come in and we provide spaces like this where we can gather, where next week we're having a game night, a family game night. So while this particular panel isn't a monthly or quarterly event, we would definitely love to continue doing it during Black History Month and to continue doing it for Mental Health Awareness Month. Any other question? Thank you to all the panelists. yes, so the planning committee, as you can see them on the screen, super grateful for your thoughts and your contribution to this conversation. Any final words from our panelists?
Hi, Amar, this is Antonia. I don't have any questions, but I would like to say we've had some very amazing speakers tonight, and they have provided resources so that you could reach out to them. So if there is a need, please don't hesitate to reach out to them. They're volunteering their time, but they are professionals and can provide you with information if you're dealing with anything specifically, and help you work through those things. So I'm thankful that they're here. I appreciate that, and I'm glad they've given us that information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to them. Though we don't have this monthly, they are available if you need information. I'm sure they've got ways where you can connect with them as well. So thank you all for tonight.
And I'm sure they are all available virtually, if not in person. So I will definitely be sharing their information on our website. And please feel free to reach out to them. Their phone numbers, everything will be shared on our website and our social media pages. If there are no more questions from our community, and if there is nothing else to add to this dialogue from our panelists, I would like to thank you all for coming out tonight, for joining in this conversation. This has been amazing. We are so appreciative of this community that we're building here in McAllen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley. And again, thank you to our panelists. You all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Feel free to come out next week, Thursday, to our family game night. That will be in person at Tacos El Plebe. Bring the family, bring the kids, bring the games. If we weren't recording, I would say I'll do my smack talk because I love to play some board games. But come on out, let's get ready to play and have some fun. All right. You guys have a good evening. Thank you to our panelists again.